is actually how do I find meaning of myself. And the observer's view, which is the outsider's view, is what do others know about me, and it is usually based on my overt behaviors. And as Freud said, that the you that you know about yourself is hardly worth knowing. And to just point and to explain it with an example, all of you must be watching Idol, American Idol or Indian Idol, or at least must have watched one episode of it, and you would be seeing a talent which comes up with a lot of and is greatly disappointed by a judge's reaction, and that is where there is a split between an identity and a reputation, because at some point in time this poor soul must have found some amount of talent in himself and would have taken risks to go up to the stage, but the observer's view, or the personality from outside, or I wouldn't call the personality here, but the talent from outside is different, the feedback from outside is different, and therefore it is what is important for us is to understand how others perceive us, because that is what is going to help us get along or get ahead. Whenever I explain this bit between identity and reputation of a personality, the question that come up to me is that it is usually the person who's filling up the questionnaire. So why is it that you're talking about the reputation? And the answer to it is in the way Hogan has been developed. And so Dr. Hogan himself says that the identity is very important piece of information for predicting reputation. Although it's irrelevant, but it is an important information that predicts reputation. When Hogan tool was getting developed, of course there's a whole bit of research behind it, and I wouldn't really take you along, but what happened is when an individual was given a test, when a test was administered on an individual, parallelly a battery of tips were given to people who were close to the SSE. It could be the manager, it could be the peer, it could be a significant other, and the person would this other person would usually describe this particular individual in a particular way, and only when a validity was established for every answer, or every how the person described about himself got to a particular adjective. And I'll take this with an example. So for example, if you look here, and it is one of the scale in which a person gets measured, and there are few questions that's coming up on the screen, and the questions are, I frequently do things on impulse, or sorry, there's a bit of static. Okay, sorry.
Rajat, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so it says questions are like, I frequently do things on an impulse, or I'm not a conformist, or I don't think about it. And the identity bit of the person is that, okay, I start on a clean slate and I'm ready to take up any challenge that the life has to offer to me. But the reputation of that individual is usually that the person is not attentive to details, and maybe he resists supervision, and maybe he or she is doesn't plan ahead, and usually the person doesn't think of the consequence of the action. And so for every identity question that a person has answered for himself, there's a reputation which has been established over years of research. So I'll quickly pause over here and would like to hear from you if it made sense, and if there's any question that you have on your mind.
So Monika, Sunil here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So you talked about the inside and the outside. Is there a third side, which is the real side?
There is no. So the personality, the way you look at personality is either I say my story, or it is how others my story. I don't know if your question is that is there a fault in between my story and the other story. Um, uh, the answer to it is that actually somebody should be bothered about the reputation, because it is the reputation of a person that carries you along, and especially in a work environment. So if I have a reputation of not getting along with people, even if there is a different story that I have in my mind, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Because my question was more in terms of you're not one but three, the one you think you are, the one you think others are, the one who you really are. And
Okay.
authenticity and the entire trip of assessment of personality is about connecting the individual to one they potentially are. So anyway, but this is good to know about the reputation side.
So to your question, I think midway of what is my story and what is the other story, and it is a pattern of behavior that is coming up.
So Sunil, also Hogan is more about saying what people are seeing you behaving and what do you think you behave like. So it's more about figuring that together rather than looking at what's the truth in all this. So they're not really getting into that piece around the truth.
Yeah, understood, sir. Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. So I'll move ahead.
This side.
Hi there.
Yeah, so whatever I heard, the Hogan is not a 360-degree assessment, right? It's only the person who is an assessee. He will do it himself, right?
Yes, it is only the person who's an SSC will do it himself. But most of the organization who's using Hogan in leadership development actually combines it with 360-degree. And more often than not, the 360-degree feedback and the Hogan feedback are similar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So can I move ahead?
Please go.
Yeah. So Hogan has actually, the entire suite looks at three sides of a personality, and the first is the inside, which is what are my motivators? What motivates me? I think there's a voice that I can hear. Sorry. So it's primarily my preferences and my motivators, and it is who I want to be. The bright side are the behavioral styles that are, and they're usually the strengths of an individual. And the third side is the dark side, and the dark side are actually known as the overused strength. And I'll bring it with more examples later, but the dark side is something that are actually the derailers of personality. They actually come in the way of performance. And most sorry.
Go ahead. People are joining in, and
Okay.
the first thing is not muted. So
Sure. So in order to measure these three parts of personality, we have three inventories. The first one is the Hpi personality inventory, and these are typically your day-to-day strength. The second is Hds, and these are your derailers. They come in your way of performance. And the third is the MVPI, which is motives, values, preference, and inventory. And these are actually the driving force.
So Monika, these are the three reports that are created?
Yes.
Or there are more than these reports that are created by Hogan?
These are the three.
Okay, these are the three reports.
These are the three reports, but they're actually, these are three inventories, and there are a number of reports that get converted.
Correct. So these are just the inventory piece.
These are just the inventories, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm assuming when you're saying inventory, these are three different type of assessments that will happen with individuals.
There are three different types of questionnaire that you answer for yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. The first one that I'm going to take up is the Hpi, and as I said, it is an information about your day-to-day preference and how other perceive you. Moving on to the next slide, there's 7 scales in this in Hpi, and each of and these 7 scales have been put in a cluster. The 7 scales, the first 2 scales, which is of adjustment and ambition, is actually a state of mind cluster. And the next two scale, and interpersonal sensitivity, is your communication skill cluster. The prudence and inquisitiveness about how you approach your work. And learning approach is really how do I learn in an organization, and what is my preference as a leader towards learning and development. I've just picked up a sample. This is how it is shown. I'll quickly take you through what does each of this mean, and how does this report look like. The first scale, which is adjustment, is actually talking about the degree to which the person is self-accepting. And before I begin to talk about the scales, I would like to share that there's nothing right or wrong. So being low on a scale doesn't mean I'm a poor performer, or being high on the scale it doesn't mean that I'm very good. Each of the scales have both positives and negative. I mean, each of the side that you are in is actually has a negative and a positive connotation. And the scale is divided is from a 0 to a 35. It is considered to be a low score. From a 35 to a 64, 36 to a 64, it is considered to be an average score. And above 60 is considered to be high score.
So what do you mean by high score or a normal score?
It is that so how the scale, for example, if I pick up adjustment, high on adjustment is is talking about a person who is usually calm, who is usually self-accepting, and the converse of it is self-critical. So a person who is low on adjustment is a person who is extremely self-critical, and an average of the score will mean that the person can play on either side. So the person has an ability, or based on the situation, can switch on either side. A situation that will trigger emotional volatility in a person who has an average adjustment. At the same time, there'll be situations where the person will remain calm. But usually a person with low adjustment will always be self-critical, will always be self-doubting.
Okay, so we are saying the lower scale is more, so for each of them it would mean differently, I'm assuming.
It will mean differently, yes.
Right. So if I'm talking about adjustment, I'm saying I adjust too easily if the score is low to things.
No, if my adjustment is low, then I don't adjust very easily.
So that's the other. Okay, so if my adjustment is low, then I'm not adjusting. I'm not a person who will adapt or adjust to things so easily.
Yes.
On the other hand, I might just accept everything and anything that is being asked, and I'll adjust to everything if the score is too high. Okay.
Yes. So I think you've rightly put it that it has both negative and positive, and you have brought it up that there is a negative side of being high on adjustment. What I'll do is I'll first quickly talk about these scales, and then I'll briefly touch upon what does a high score, what is a positive of a high score, and what is not too good about a high score, and what is it that the person should be bothered about or reflecting upon.
Sure, go ahead.
So before you go, one question: is there also a story along with combinations? Like, for example,
yes,
adjustment and ambition. Adjustment is high, but ambition is low. Is there a story over there, or a definition on those lines also?
Of course, there is a story, and I'm glad that you brought it up. Each of the scales have interrelationships. And when you are reading a report for somebody, a scale will, when combined with another scale will tell you something about the person. While sorry.
In the scale itself, they don't sort of, there is no interplay.
In the scale itself, it just tells you what your preference is. So if I'm low on adjustment, which means that if I get nervous, I may be planning too much in advance. If I'm high on adjustment, which means I'm usually self-assured, I may be missing on my planning. So it doesn't really say that this is good or bad. But when in combination, it tells you a story. For example, I mean, and the combination is both within these scales and also with the next inventory, which is HDS.
Yeah, so they within this as well. Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yes. So each of this, the inventory in itself tell you a part of you, of your story, and then in conjunction with the several other scales, it really draws up a picture about you.
Great. So one last question, Monika, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a definition for each of these, or is it left to the interpretation of the certifier?
No, there is a thick guide that comes along with a practitioner, and there is a good vocabulary of adjectives, and this vocabulary has been picked up after years of research. So it is not something where you worry about what is it that you have to put in the report. So once you've understood this, you can always go back to the Hogan guide and see what does a scale of adjustment talk about the person. So there is a list of adjectives that come with adjustment, and then also the interplay. So somebody low on adjustment and low on ambition, what does it mean? Somebody low on adjustment but high on ambition, it means something different.
So Monika, just staying with this point, as far as interpretation goes, I don't know, maybe I missed something. The adjustment, you mean the flexibility that a person shows in a situation, or is it, you are talking about self-doubt also, self-doubt or self-confidence? These are probably flexibility, and self-doubt and self-confidence are probably a bit. So what exactly is adjustment in this context?
So adjustment comes from the fact of how self-assured I am. So if I am a person who's worrying, I will be low on adjustment. And what it may play for me is that every time when a big change is coming to me, and I understand my triggers, I may be very well prepared. And therefore I will become a little bit flexible.
Okay. Just staying with that, Monika, I mean, if I am a very insecure kind of a person, in a group situation it can happen, I will be extra flexible just to be nice with everybody types, because I have a big self-doubt, so I will probably go along with the group.
No, so adjustment just talks about your self-doubt, but there's another scale which is called interpersonal sensitivity, which talks about whether I'll be rude to a person or whether I'll be extra nice to the person, whether I'll be not rude is an incorrect word, whether I'll be tactless when I'm talking to somebody, vis-a-vis where I'll be extra careful. So adjustment in itself just means that you are not very confident about yourself, but it doesn't mean that it is wrong to be confident about yourself.
So I'm going to hold that as of now, because we are not going to get into the meanings of each of them, because that will take, and that's where the practitioner piece and training piece comes in, right?
Rajat, meanwhile, I have a question. What is norms global? Are the scales that are shown here, 2, 4, 40, the norms at a global level? Is that what is being shown on this slide?
No, I'm sorry. I just took a screenshot, and that's why it's showing norms global. Norms global are actually Hogan has various norms based on the countries. So, for example, Asian norm is different vis-a-vis a global norm. And by the way, India falls in despite being an Asian country, it falls under a global norm. So norms are also how acceptable is a particular scale. So interpretation under a global norm will be a different, while interpretation under an Asian norm will be a different.
Okay, and for each one of these, are there subscales?
Yes. Thank you, Murthy, for bringing it up. Yes, there are subscales, and these subscales give you a lot of insight. I'm sorry I didn't bring it up in this presentation because it would have taken a lot of time, and it's almost like going through a certification. So,
okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The electricity is. It'll take a bit of a time before. I think there's some connection problem at my home, but I hope
we can still hear you. We can still hear you. Go ahead.
You can hear me and you can see the slide.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay.
Monika, one more question here. Is there a ideal scale combination for a personality? For example, if somebody is supposed to be a CEO of an organization, is there an ideal scale of ideal numbers of the scale or a range of scales where the person should fall?
ideal scale based on what job you are perform. I mean, what is your job content?
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll give you an example. Though I'm for example, prudence. Prudence is a scale which says how planned I am, how detailed, how methodical I am. Now, I take an example of a pilot. If a pilot is low on prudence, you will probably not fly that airline. Because the person has to be detail oriented, has to be extremely cautious about the rules and the regulations. But for a senior leadership, it doesn't matter if he's not prudent, because for him it is important to see the big picture. So even if he's low on prudence scale, it is all right.
So is it, see, this interpretation or a correlation of these scales with respect to job is left to the interpreter, or are there guidance?
Okay.
Provided by Hogan?
There is some bit of guidance provided by Hogan, but it is actually the skill of the interpreter. For example, even today, after doing some 10 interpretation, I struggle. And I do go back to a buddy or a mentor who has been assigned. The person will look at it in more details and then explain it to me. So it's a year of experience that will count.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the next scale is of an ambition, and ambition talks about the degree to which the person takes up challenges, and it talks about how much of initiative that person can take, how competitive that person is, how much of that, or how much forthcoming is that person. So these two are also called a state of mind, which I explained earlier. The third and the fourth scale, and I'm going to go a little bit quickly through these scales. The third and the fourth scale is about sociability and interpersonal sensitivity. Sociability actually measures the degree to which a person is gregarious, the degree to which the person has social confidence, also talkative. Interpersonal sensitivity is a measure of tactfulness, like I said. On the lower side, it talks about a person being blunt and not caring about what is the consequence of his or her word. On the other side of the scale is that the person is extremely careful of what he says or he or she says. So that talks about your communication skill. The next two scales are of prudence and inquisitiveness, and that's your approach to work. Prudence is how methodical or planned or detail oriented I am, and how much of rules I follow. Inquisitive is about your creativity, your problem solving approach, and how much of idea generator that the person is. A high on inquisitive is a person who's highly imaginative, it has a lot of curiosity. A low of inquisitive is a person who will see through execution, will have very pragmatic ideas, will not experiment too much. On the learning approach, it talks about how well I learn. It actually talks about how I learn. So, a low on learning approach is a person who will want to stick on the job training, like to only learn the piece that matters for his or her immediate job requirement. A person who's high on learning approach will like loves the overall academic pursuit and is keen on understanding. So, for example, if a person on high learning approach goes to a training program, the person will really want to see how does the role play help in driving the message across. But a person on low learning approach will go with an approach as to what is it for me. So that's what learning approach talks. And what I'll do is that I'll quickly explain this story. The next slide that is when I begin to talk about a same example, and then it'll build more about the person. So this person on adjustment, and means the person is worrying and has a lot of self-doubt, and usually a person who's low on adjustment will have most of their HPI scales on the side, because the person is always doubting himself or herself, and most of the HDS will be elevated. So the derailers will be elevated. This person takes up only those assignments which he or she feels comfortable with. Is doesn't like to take risk. Is always fretting about the past mistakes. But at the same time, this person is readily available for. The person actually accepts feedback very quickly and likes to work on the feedback. On the ambition side, if a wall to take up challenging tasks, the person will, of course, be extremely cautious, but will push himself or herself to do the task for the sake of, and it will be driven by the fear of failing. On the sociability side, the person is relatively social and on interpersonal sensitivity, despite being low on adjustment, the person is also very blunt. So he or she would give a feedback on the face of the person, and sometimes it works in the person's favor, sometimes it doesn't. A low on prudence means that the person is able to see the big picture, and at the same time is not detail oriented. So sometimes in the work, the person can miss on some important piece of information. Inquisitive, this person has a creative side, is able to, and between prudence and inquisitive, it also predicts much of big picture the person is able to see. So if the person is low on prudence, which means he's not very, he doesn't get worked up with minute details, but looks at a bigger picture. And if the inquisitive is high, then it actually gives a picture of a person who has an ability to see something as a whole. And can see a big picture. These people can work very well in a leadership position. But in this case, because the adjustment is low, the person will be challenged in the leadership position. So the information about the person on coaching side will be, how do you work with your self-doubt? And again, learning approach is low, which means the person will only have information which is good for his or her job. I hope I've been able to take all of you through HPI, and if there's any question, I can take it up.
So if you were to summarize this personality who is there on a screen, how would you summarize this personality? Creating a combination of all of this.
Yeah, so what I'll do is when I move to HDS, it gives you a lot more information about this person. Okay. Yeah, so we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Can I move ahead?
Go ahead, Monika.
Just a pause. Arvind, is there anything on the chat which you want to pick up?
No, there's nothing here, Monika, as of now.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay. So when I'm coaching or actually an interpreter of the report, then is a HPI reflection that I would ask a person to reflect on, and most of the time I would invite the person to think about some of those incidents in the past which have come in the way in performance. Whether this report speaks to them, and is there something in their behavior that they have seen in the past, say something about them after looking at this HPI, and to leverage the strength. Usually in the coaching methodology, we will talk about what is it that you'll do more of and what is it that you'll do less of, and it becomes the part of my initial planning. The next inventory that I moved to is the S, which is how do I behave when I'm under stress, and that HDS is likely to play during the times of stress. So in day-to-day work, maybe HDS will not play up, and they play up for various reasons, which are like when there's a change that I have not initiated, when there is a workload which is heavy and I get overwhelmed by it, when I'm not paying attention to something, and then also when I'm complacent with where I am, and also prolonged exposure. So, for example, one of the people that I worked with, I realized that there was a prolonged exposure of a person working in a job where the boss was extremely dominating, and therefore the personality started to play up in a different manner for the person. So the person is actually seeing a change in his her personality. So
Monika,
yeah.
can you switch off your video? We are not hearing you. Your words are missing.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the derailers, and these are the several times when it's come in play, and it can come in play as a big change happening, and I have not initiated the change. It can play up when the workload is overwhelming. Sometimes when not attention to what I'm doing. It all plays up when somebody's come. And for exposure of a atmosphere or environment. Sorry. This reason why okay. I'll just stop sharing it for a moment because my cursor is not moving, and share it once again.
We can see everybody now.
I don't, if because I've stopped my video, I'll just switch on a video for some time and see if the cursor is moving.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm not too sure why it's not moving. So I have shared the PPT with Arvind. Would you like to, Arvind? Would you like to open it and yeah, so that.
Sure, I can check that. I did see your cursor moving now.
Sure. So I'm going to manage your PPT.
Okay. Okay.
So I hope I can. 1 second.
Yeah, it is moving.
Monika, this is Sunil from DC. I just want to tell you you're doing fine. So please keep going.
Thank you so much, Sunil.
Is this helping you now? So
yeah, yes, it is.
Okay.
So I'll stop my video so that my voice is clear. So if you could move a slide up.
it's taking a slight more time than usual.
Yeah, that I'm wondering why it is.
Can you go outside of your presentation mode once?
Okay.
Just get out of your presentation mode itself. You stop sharing the screen. I think your presentation will be on your laptop. I think your resources are being used too much on the laptop.
Okay, so I'll try to close some of my.
Arvind, do you have the application, the presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, I am just downloading it. 1 second.
Yeah.
Few seconds.
So we have 2 Sandhyas in the room. Why? What did you do, Sandhya?
She's logged in from a mobile and laptop.
And she's talking about Zoom really slows down things. And she's got 2 of her here.
She's listening through multiple personalities, maybe.
What, you're on Mondrath or something? You're not talking, is it?
Okay, it's open.
Okay, fine. I do button is.
It may be useful, Arvind, for you to put up the presentation. It will probably hog lesser resources from.
I've already done that.
Thank you.
I've already
doing that. That's what he's been trying to do. But he's got a Windows machine, so it will take time.
It's a very good message.
That's very unfair. Call out a comparison between Windows and Apple here.
We have a big thing happening with Apple and Windows. So anyway, where do you want me to go, Monika?
To the Hds scale, which is slide number 12.
Okay. Is that correct? Yes.
Next one.
Okay.
She
So the
said
H.
Hds Scale. I've got the correct one, right?
Oh yes, this is the correct one.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the HDS, there are 11 scales, and again these have clusters. The first 5 are actually known as moving away from people cluster. I'll speak about them in a bit. The are called moving against people cluster, and the last 2 are actually moving towards people cluster. So what happens in moving away people cluster, that you actually move a person who is high on these elevations are actually, they actually move away from people, and so some of the behaviors that that come up for an individual who has high elevation are that the person is extremely emotionally volatile, will be moody, will tend to flare up. The person also could be distrustful of others. And these are all stress type behaviors that I'm talking about. And the person could be resentful of authority, could be afraid of criticism, and could be quiet and withdrawn. And now moving against people is a very interesting cluster to observe. Usually people who show high on moving against elevation against cluster are people who are usually very charismatic and self-confident. So as they say, this is actually overuse of your strength. So somebody who's extremely self-confident, and for example, if somebody is very high on adjustment, and extremely sociable, are the people who will show up on derailers in this cluster. The third set of cluster are moving towards people, and these are usually people pleasers. And these people will look up to a figure of authority when under stress. They would avoid taking decisions. They are usually micromanagers, and they also are people who can squash the voice of their own subordinates while they're willing to please people upwards. And as you can see that, these are scales which are, these are actually derailers that come from your own strengths. So for example, somebody who's incitable, actually people who are very energetic, but under stress, they become extremely, they're overreacting, and they become extremely emotionally volatile, and they can lose control. They can be critical about others, and basically they lose their emotional balance. And then I talk about skeptical. Skeptical people are always very perceptive, and I'll talk my own example. I am very high on skeptical, and I am the person who can sense others' motive. But it doesn't work in my favor a lot of time, because a lot of time I begin to distrust and I'm not able to move ahead. I become cynical. I break my relationships. There sometimes they come in my way, that I begin to see the room when there's no ghost. And there are a number of examples that I can share where moment something comes, moment I come under stress, I begin to think about somebody in a very different way, and the number of times it has come up that I was totally wrong. So skeptical is a person who is very intuitive, but at the same time under stress can become distrustful. I mean, they don't trust the intentions of others. The next case is cautious, and a cautious person otherwise is very careful, but under pressure they are indecisive. They don't want to take risks. They want to build walls around themselves before they move ahead.
So, Monika, just a question. When you say a high score makes you prone to crossing the line from being, say, intense and energetic to being moody and prone to overreacting, what would that balance score be?
Okay, so I should actually I should have right at the beginning I should have spoken a little bit of on HDS, and HDS is usually doesn't have a positive and a negative. It only means negative. So on a scale which is the scale actually tells you gets divided in three different categories, and someone who is low has low risk of being excitable. So that it doesn't show up in the person at all. And usually a person who's high on adjustment will not have a high on excitable. So the person is self-assured, and even in time of stress, it will not they won't lose their equanimity. So that's what it means. So, reading an HDS report, you usually read the high scores. The low scores also has something to say about the personality, and actually a no risk has also something negative to talk about an individual. So, for example, a leader who is low on bold and mischievous is not somebody who is going to test any limits. Will allow others to take up the stage. Will not up. Uh, I mean, there are times when a leader has to make harsh decisions, but somebody who is low on excitable will actually let it go off. There is a reading about very low HDS also, but it usually comes with when you read scales in conjunction, and that comes with skill. So when I'm reading something about a person in HPI, I will go back and see if a particular scale of HDS is very low, and that gives me a bit of more information about the person. But when you're doing your first, what they say is that when you are beginning to learn about interpreting Hogan, you should only look at the high scales and what is it in for the person as a development need. I hope I've been able to explain this.
So Monika, one more thing. Is HDS ever done alone for somebody and no HPI is done?
Yes, for a leadership position, for very senior leaders, HDS is done alone.
Okay.
Yeah. But HDS is not done for a person with less experience because the person is still getting groomed, and there are not enough events in the person's life to show up HDS.
Okay. Yeah. But it's looking at it from a negative mindset of derailers.
Yes, it is all. Yes, it is always looking at the development needs.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was talking about the next scale, which is reserved. Someone who is reserved will also be inattentive to others' needs, and will usually come across as person who's unconcerned about others. And there are people who like to prefer to work alone, communicative. The next scale is of leisurely, which is again, so a person who's high on leisurely are people who are actually passive aggressive. So on the face of it, they will appear to be extremely cooperative, but there is a huge resentment that the person holds inside. And these are the people who will not understand urgency of others. And these are the people who are actually very high on, very hard to coach. And if there is a high scale on adjustment, which means a person is very, very confident about himself, and a high scale on leisurely, it talks a lot about the person's coachability. The person may not allow any feedback to cross him. So I'll move to the next.
Am I assuming that coachability means that I am not ready to accept things for myself?
Yes. So a person who's high on leisurely and also high on adjustment will not easily accept feedback.
They might not easily accept feedback. I'm wondering why is it called coachability and not because they can still be talking about future development.
Yeah, I mean, technically, maybe I'm wrong. But what it means is, yeah. So no, what it means is that the person will be a difficult case. Acceptance of a feedback is concerned. Until the time you haven't accepted feedback, the next step is a little difficult. Is what I'm presuming.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So can I request Monika for, so we are at 8:26 already.
Oh yeah.
So if you have more slides to cover, you might want to.
I have a lot of slides to cover, but what I'll do is, in interest of time, I'll skip these slides because I think I have spoken about them and I've shared the PPT already. Just go through these in future, and anybody can approach me. You want to know more about it?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll quickly move to the case study, and Arvind, I'll request you to move to. We can move. I'll talk about. No, we can move. Let's keep moving down. I mean, let's keep skipping these slides, and I'll quickly move to the MVPI, which is the third inventory with my motives, my values, my preferences, and my interests. And again, there are these.
Is it the right slide, Monika?
Yeah. This is the light side. So there are these 10 scales on which one is measured. So what is important for an MVPI is that it actually just talks about what are the things that are going to motivate me. But the absence of it doesn't make any difference. And MVPI is usually MVPI is actually administered on a lot of junior or entry level, and it with person's inner motion and what values that organization has offered. What it means is I'm on a few of the scales. I will like to create a culture which is what my values are. For example, a person who's very on commerce will be a person who will drive a lot of financial discipline in the organization. Or, for example, a high science again invested in about new technology and what is good in the benchmarks and would to adopt them. So these are the scales which talk about the fitment that one, it talks about fitment, and second, it talks about how will the leader create the environment in the organization. What I'll do is I'll quickly move to the case study, and maybe that will be a little helpful. And I hope I have been able to cover MBPI well enough.
So just to clarify, so what we're saying is I can have any one of them from a values perspective and all that kind of stuff. And it depends on what the company's culture is and what I'm looking for in people who are coming into this culture.
Right.
So I could be looking at hedonism as part of my cultural because that's what my culture is.
Yes. So, yes.
Okay, and that is what I am looking for in this in this inventory.
See, what it also means is that a person who is high on hedonism, and if your organization about fun and pleasure, then the fitment will be high. Sure. While if a person doesn't have very high hedonism, and if you recruit that person, the person will feel a little lost. Sure. With too much of parties and fun and who are going everywhere. So that is what it will predict.
Sure. So we are looking at value match between the organization and the person who's coming in.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is this a tool that is used during the recruitment side, or is it too costly use for recruitment?
So if you are using all the three inventories for a recruitment, it is done only at a senior leadership. But there are a lot of organizations who only pick up MVPI to even at a junior to mid level. But the tool is expensive. So, for example, when I tried selling Hogan, my previous organization, which is a BPO, they wouldn't look at this at all because their cost per hire is 200, and for an MVPI, it at least takes 1500. So they will not be interested. So it really depends on what organization it is.
I'm sure for senior people, probably people may be interested because there are not too many positions and all of that. Okay, understood.
Yeah.
It depends on the cost per hire, as
Yes.
Monika is talking about. Saying if my cost per hire itself is 6,000, then spending around 3,000, 4,000 is very important for me on that person.
Yeah.
Monika, Arvidya, isn't there I remember seeing, I think it's a product description basically, but there is something called as a Hogan Select, Hogan Develop, and Hogan Lead.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are 3 different variations of Hogan assessments that somebody can buy. So, a talent acquisition department can buy the Hogan Select, which has only selection-based, assessments. Is that a right reference, which I'm aware?
Yes. Yes. So you're right. I mean, there are more than 3 reports, and depending on what are your needs, you can buy those reports. The inventories are only these 3, and depending on the needs, I may only administer MVP on someone,
Right,
and then the report will come
So just
in
to
a
answer
different way.
Nitin's question, there is a recruitment side assessment. There is a appraisal, development, that kind of side, assessment which is available for Hogan, and there is a lead which is only at the leadership level,
Right.
and that's what my understanding is. And I just want to check with you if that's correct.
Yes, that's right, Arvind. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll put the case studies, and these 2 case studies I've picked up because I also have a 360-degree feedback for these people. And when I looked at the report and then when I cross-checked with the 360-degree feedback, it actually, they were exactly what the Hogan report was predicting. When I quickly look at case A and case B, you can see in adjustment scale, case A is on the medium scale, while a case B is on a high scale. What came up for a person, and case A is a head of HR, and case B was a head of finance. So what came up for a case stays that this person with medium adjustment and low intersensitivity was able to stay calm and optimistic in all situations, and was also able to address non-performance. So the person could immediately give feedback, and sometimes she did come across as blunt, but the organization is very happy with her because she remains focused on her task. In case B, if you can see adjustment and interpersonal sensitivity play out, even a person over here stays calm and is steady under pressure. This person is also very hardworking, but he's mostly motivated by his ability to get along. And this person doesn't address non-performance in a timely manner. And another scale, if I pick up, I look at ambition. So for case A, the ambition is in 73, which is on the higher side, and for case B, the ambition is on 19, which is on the lower side. Case A really takes up challenges. She is somebody who takes up initiative, who doesn't shy away, it's not that case B is not hardworking. The person is known as being an extremely dedicated and a hardworking person. But this person feels very comfortable in allowing others to take up the center stage. This person doesn't really want to be seen as somebody who's taking the lead. And a lot of time during the feedback session, he shared about incidences when he allowed his subordinate to present things which he had personally worked upon. And when he shared it, it actually shared it with a sense of pride that, I allow people to grow in my team, and I don't come in their way. But when we spoke to him, there was something different. And the third thing, if I talk about the problem solving approach for these two people, both of them will actually work on tried and tested method. They will avoid unnecessary risk, because prudence is very high for case A, and it is slightly low for case B. But I'll quickly talk about what stops the case B to pick up unprecedented solution. So case A, actually, if you look at it, because of high prudence, she builds walls which are absolutely foolproof. She will not look at any other solution till she verifies that solution, and in this process, she actually misses on opportunities. While her learning approach is very, very high. So when her learning approach is very high, she stays up to date with what is in the market practice, and where is it that she can draw resources from. So what happens is that in that case, she knows with whom to reach out. While case B, if you see, even if his prudence is low, he treats with a lot of caution because his learning approach is low, and that takes a back seat in overall going out to the market, talking about what is happening in the market is not really his style. And one of the reasons why it is not his style is because he's very high on adjustment. He's so confident of what he or she brings to the table that he's unwilling to go out in the market and see what is happening. So for both of them, with different scale, the problem solving approach is almost similar. I'll move to the next slide.
Monika.
Yeah.
So we'll have another couple of minutes.
Okay.
So is there anything that needs to be spoken and that can really make a difference to everybody, that this needs to be known about Hogan?
Yeah. So I only wanted to say that so there are few things that you'll pick up from one inventory, and then when you will cross check in on the other inventory, you will see how and why things are happening. So for example, in case B, as I said, that even with low prudence, the person is unwilling to take up solutions which are not tried and tested, because if you look at his HDS, he's overcautious. And so, I mean, what I wanted to bring up to the table is that, all the three inventories will build up the story or the case for a person.
Sure. Anything else?
Yeah, I think I'm open to any question and answer if there is, or I'm available on my email ID and my phone number, and we can talk one-on-one if somebody wants to know more.
Sure.
Monika, I was just asking.
Can you stop? Sorry, one second. Can you stop the share, Arvind? Helps. Thank you. Go ahead, Sandhya.
Yeah, Monika, I know you referred to this in leadership coaching. My question is that, is this used primarily in the executive coaching space, or does one use it, even like for life coaching and elsewhere?
This is Hogan is actually a workplace tool. So it's mostly worked. It predicts behaviors at the workplace. I'm not too sure if it works in life coaching, but I don't have enough experience, so I can't give you that answer.
So it's more career-oriented concept, and
yes.
When she's talking about workplace, it's basically saying, derailers in workplace are very important to know. Right? So it's coming more from those perspectives.
So Sandhya, just to add to that point, what you're asking, there are possibilities that, say somebody has gone through an assessment like this, might want to work with a holistic approach towards their life, and they might bring in aspects of these in a conversation with a coach. So there is that possibility that can happen. Otherwise, this is definitely a workplace tool. It works on a lot of internal coaching that an organization actually does.
Okay. But as a coach, would you ever suggest it to an organization, or is it typically that the organization comes to you with a report, or the coachee himself?
So to answer your question, actually, I have taken this to organizations, and I have given them assessments, and based on one or two feedback, they have adopted it for their organization as a part of leadership development. And actually, one organization has adopted it for their fast track. So they have picked up a batch of people on whom they are going to administer Hogan, and then they are based on their HDS and HPI, they are going to coach and develop. Yeah.
So at the same time, the point is that since it's so expensive, if you RP, I'm going to put you on mute. Sorry, one more minute. So since it's very expensive, typically a coach is not able to sell it to an organization so easily, because it takes a lot of decision making to get approval for such an expensive thing, right? So, and a lot of Hogan is being sold directly by Hogan, the inventory guys, and sold at an organizational level, right? And the organization come to you and say, hey, we have done Hogan for this person, and now we're looking for a coach for this person, and they'll send you the Hogan report just to have a look at it. But you will, unless you understand Hogan, you will not be able to take out a lot from it.
Yeah. Rajat, Sunil, just to build on that, so Hogan is clearly probably the most pervasive kind of set of inventories that organizations are using. To Sandhya's point earlier, predominantly workplace, Sandhya, I haven't heard of any application in the life context. And to build on what Arvind said, certainly there are many things that when you work with leaders with the benefit of data from the inventories, it is extremely good for the leader themselves as well as for the coach, because when it's essentially set in a developmental kind of frame, so it's not judgmental. It can also be dynamic, especially in the case of the HPI. So, you know, it provides for higher self-awareness and you know, self-directed learning as well. But I'm seeing it more and more as almost like a, you know, when folks have a choice, in some cases, organizations don't insist on it, but give leaders a choice. And I've seen invariably leaders take it up and go through the assessment and want to use that data. So I've coached a whole bunch of leaders here in the US who didn't have to share their data, but chose to share it and felt that it was useful for them, and they felt that it would help in the coaching conversations as well. So I hope that helps.
Sure. Thank you. Monika, question for you is, how expensive is this? Sorry that IRP, I'm still taking how expensive is this?
Yes. So I was about to type this. No, it is not 1,500 per. It is ranges from 10,000 to 1,500. 1,500 is only one inventory, and that is VPI. If you want to an HDS, for example, 6,500. If you want to take all inventories, again they are different. Sorry, can you?
Your voice is breaking. Could you type it? That will help.
Yeah.
RP, you had the question. Sorry.
Hi, Monika. Thank you very much. I think it is a very insightful session. I actually wanted to know a lot about Hogan, and this really helped. My single question is, in MVPI, you had mentioned that you are able to see the attributes of the individual and see if it matches with the organization. Now, in the typical scenario, just my curiosity, how will you understand what the organization stands for? Is there a separate survey taken for it, or is it some feedback mechanism? Because many organizations might want to believe that they are a fun place and they are meritocracy and, you know, stuff like that. But is reality matching with that? How do we verify? So we can understand what the attributes of the candidate are, but what the organization really is, how do we measure that?
Yeah, so, you know, one example that I have from a real organization is that this organization has invested a lot on great places to work, and they understand their real values. And these are this is based on the feedback that the difference between the values that is put on walls and values that are really practiced. So they base their assessment on what is the value that is practiced in the organization. So essentially you have to understand your the organization values thoroughly before you're able to use it. And these are not just the values that are actually put up on the walls, is what I would say. These are the values which experience while they are in the organization.
Thank you.
So, Monika, I've heard of these kind of numbers, 23,000, 20,000 also. What are those around Hogan?
Yeah, so 23,000 is what is called the leader focus, and there is so the report that is generated is a bit more intense, but somebody who's an expert in Hogan can give you an idea about your personality based on a report which will just cost you 10,000.
Sure, thank you. So it's basically just the scales that they will provide you and some definitions around those scales for this kind of pricing. And for 22,000, you'll get a detailed analysis in the report.
Yes.
Sure, thank you.
Hi, Monika. This is George. I have just one question. Hello. Yeah. So the entire assessment is based on an individual's feedback, right? So suppose if I am administered the Hogan test, then it's based on what I fill in the sheets, right?
Yes. So it is based on what you fill in the sheet, but it is when the Hogan tool is developed, it is so it's the definition is like this, that people who have answered like you have been perceived by others like this. So it's side of you which is getting assessed.
I got that piece. Yes, I got that piece. That is the repetition side which is being assessed. My query is what suppose, especially since this is being administered at a workplace. Now, if the individual is not 100% true in terms of the answers to the queries that are mentioned, now will the report not throw off a very different personality than he actually is?
Okay, so thank you for bringing up that question. The test has been designed in such a way that it is difficult to bluff it. But when the report comes and somebody has not somebody has not been honest with their responses, then actually in the report there is something called validity, and if the validity is less than 100%, then that report cannot be read.
Great. Validity has to be 100%, is it?
Yes, it has to be 100. So anything less than 100, either the person is asked to take that test again, or the test is not interpreted for that.
Thank you so much. That was great help.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I know the questions will keep coming in, but we need to stop. We are at 8:50. Thank you so much, Monika, for this. You were brilliant. You were awesome in the session. And I think every one of us learned a lot here, right? And we would love to hear more, but we'll hear it as in some more time from you. We'll take other time and help see if what we can create around this through you.
Right? Thank you so much, Raj. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. It has worked for me in a very different way. Bring a lot of clarity myself. So thanks a lot for this opportunity.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Monika, for being here. Thank you guys for being here. It was a pleasure seeing each of you. And we'll see you soon. Luann is doing the next one for us. So she's here. And it's a very interesting webinar. Do join in. And Luann is from Canada. So she's taking care of this. I won't tell the topic too much, but something around strengths. So.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Good night.